So why don't we go ahead and get started here? And I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Hugh Cox. I'm co-chair of Sustainable Claremont. I'm stepping in for Stuart tonight. He wasn't able to make it, and so I'll be hosting this. Anyway, I want to start by thanking everyone for coming to Sustainable Claremont's Dialogue series. And just have a few quick announcements. Sustainable Claremont will be holding the annual garden tour again this spring, and we are looking for homes to feature. If you're interested in featuring your home, or if you know somebody else that might be, you can contact Han, and her email will be in the chat box. We also are promoting some of our Sustainable Claremont swag, which includes T-shirts and hats, and I think there's a hoodie and maybe some other things. There's a link in the comment section, and you can also find that on our website. And then just generally, if you want to know anything more about Sustainable Claremont, or make a donation, or volunteer, or learn about other events, please go to our website. So with that, I will turn over to the program tonight, and I'd like to introduce Sara Rodriguez, who's our featured speaker this evening. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist who's been in the mental and behavioral health field for more than 18 years. She works at Tri-City Mental Health as a projects manager and serves on the board of directors for the American Horticultural Therapy Association. This is her third time speaking with us, and we are so glad to have her back. And just a quick note, there will be a question and answer period after she has made her remarks, and we will be taking questions that you place in the chat box, and also call on individuals who use the raise hand function. So Sara, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. It's great to be back again. Hugh, I appreciate the introduction. And I think I've been given the capability to share screen. I'll give that a minute. It still says I'm disabled from sharing my screen, just FYI.
So Han, I need to end being the host.
If you click on Sara's name in more, you can make her the host.
Oh, okay.
Ah, there we go.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay, perfect. So yes, it is my third time being here, but it's very different because my first two times being with you, all here at Sustainable Claremont, I was reporting to you in the capacity of being one of the therapists for the Therapeutic Community Garden. So this is very different for me because now I have taken on a new role with Tri-City Mental Health, and I am the Mental Health Services Act Project Manager. So today what I'm going to really focus on is really giving an overview of what we have going on at Tri-City while we're called Tri-City Mental Health. We do a lot more than just the clinical applications in adult outpatient or family therapy. So I'm really going to discuss today and kind of tie this into what Sustainable Claremont is all about, that we are addressing that whole person, looking at an individual as who they are, where they fit into society, who they are as part of a system, right? We all come from families, we all come from communities, we all come from different environments and cultural backgrounds. So how does that all tie into how we take care of the spaces around us and our environments, whether that be our homes or our yards or sustainability, you know, for the greater good. So I'm going to give a brief introduction to Tri-City Mental Health overall. We're going to look at the Mental Health Services Act and just kind of learn that certain departments at Tri-City, they're funded very differently and they could do things very differently when compared to departments that might be funded by Medi-Cal realignment, and really you're looking at that insurance reimbursement. I want to touch on the 8 dimensions of wellness because that's really where I feel it's driven home that We are parts of systems. We are humans that have different angles and different needs and different areas in our lives that we want to satisfy and see grow. The components of the Mental Health Services Act are going to be discussed, and I'm going to give you a little bit of background as to why that's important, and then definitely want to hear your comments and questions. So part of the reason I'm here is, what do you feel like is missing from the local community mental health support in your area? Do you feel that anything we're doing has been particularly helpful that you want to see more of? Really just a time for suggestions and feedback. We want to hear everyone's voice and take into account what the community has to say about their community mental health services. Okay, so Tri-City Mental Health is about 64 years old now. We opened up in 1960 and we became a joint power authority when Claremont, Laverne, and Pomona decided to join together to be funded as a separate county pulled out of Los Angeles. So while we still adhere to larger rules and regulations of the Department of Mental Health, we are separate. Laverne, Pomona, and Claremont have their own mental health funding. We are only one of two cities that decided to do this in California, Berkeley being the other one, Berkeley pulling out as a city, being able to be its own county when it comes to mental health funding. So we have a lot of different components. Like I mentioned, we have our mental health services, which is your early intervention, your crisis support, and your outpatient services, and your more intensive services. But we also have our prevention and well-being programs, which these are really looking at, as I mentioned, wellness, that whole person, physical, mental, spiritual, etc. Wellness. When we view an individual through a lens of wellness, we're not necessarily viewing them as healthy or unhealthy, but all the different components that compose of who they are. Our community support programs may help with linkages, referrals, trainings, stigma reduction. There's a lot of free services and programs that we can offer the city, and we want to come, or the cities, and we want to come to you as well. We're not just saying, hey, come to us and we'll teach you this. We want to embed ourselves in the community and make sure everyone knows who we are and what we have to offer. Okay, so as far as what I am here to discuss a little further is the Mental Health Services Act. And this was California's first attempt in many, many years to really overhaul the mental health system. California started to close state mental health hospitals in the 1960s. And to this day, we see the ripple effect of really a failure of having any type of transitional support for individuals that lost their spaces and their support in those hospitals and just kind of had to figure things out on their own. We believe that this has impacted the substance use trends that we see in the community, not the reason for per se, but definitely has an impact of the homelessness that we see in the community, the housing insecurity that we see. So MHSA was really, really huge. And in 2004, this was passed. The way we're able to do this is through the millionaire's tax. So anyone in California whose personal income exceeds $1 million, 1% of that excess of $1 million income is taxed. And that money goes directly into MHSA programming. What's really fascinating is that started as 10% of all California's community mental health budget back in 2004. That's grown to 24%. So 1/4 of the entire budget we see going into California's community mental health is due to the Mental Health Services Act. And then down here, the last bullet point are the 5 components that I'm going to get into in just a slide or two with you. But before we jump into the programming that's possible because of the Mental Health Services Act and kind of the uniqueness of all that programming, I wanted to introduce you to, or remind you of, the 8 dimensions of wellness. So this was created by SAMHSA, and there's other versions of this. You can find the 10 dimensions of wellness, the 12 dimensions. I like to present the 8 dimensions of wellness because it really just, again, views that person as not healthy or unhealthy, which is how the old school medical model used to view us, right? You were healthy if you were free of disease, injury, or illness. And that really is nobody, right? So this concept of wellness really takes us into considering you as a spiritual being, an intellectual being, a physical being, an environmental being, right? And how they all intertwine too. If I'm not doing so well financially, that may impact how I'm doing intellectually, or that may impact how I take care of myself physically. So it's all very intertwined. And the 5 components I mentioned in the previous slide are broken down like this. Every county in California has these exact same 5 components. It's just that the programming within each component may look a little bit different. So community services and supports, prevention and early intervention, innovations, capital facilities and technologies, and workforce education is training. That is set across the board in every single county. But what I'm going to get into now is really show you how Tri-City, the communities, our stakeholders, our governing board, our commissioners have rolled out programming based on the needs of our community members here in Pomona, Claremont, and Laverne. So the community services and supports is probably what you may view as a little more traditional treatment. Our full service partnership is going to be looking at individuals and supporting individuals who are experiencing more severe symptoms and impairments of a mental health diagnosis. We also have our supplemental crisis and intensive outreach and engagement team. We have been contacted directly by PD in the 3 cities, and they may have identified that a certain situation that's happening in the community isn't necessarily one that needs police intervention per se, but maybe more of someone who's experiencing a mental health crisis. Our team goes out by ourselves or with the PD. We make contact. We try to build a bridge to connect individuals to services if mental health services are appropriate in the situation. Our field-capable clinical services for older adults is attempting to eliminate the barrier of transportation, maybe someone who's not fully ambulatory, who is having a lot of difficulty coming into the clinic, or really just due to stigma, right? We're going to go into their home for their services or a safe place in the community that the individual feels appropriate to receive their services. Our wellness center is just a hub for activities. They have talent shows, movie nights, different cultural events, a ton of groups. Wellness center, really, if you haven't had a chance to look them up, it is free. It is open to the community. You don't have to have Medi-Cal. You can just live, work, go to school, or have some kind of affiliation with Claremont, Laverne, or Pomona. It doesn't mean you have to be a resident. Unlike, just side note, our billable, Medi-Cal reimbursed department, for that, you do need to be a resident of Claremont, Laverne, or Pomona. For the community navigators, we may not have a resource that someone's looking for, but the navigators are the department that really help identify in the community where an individual can get connected to the service they're looking for. When I used to work in adult outpatient as a one-on-one therapist, I may have had a client who, just making up a state, they're moving to Michigan, they're moving to New York, but they're looking for A, B, and C when they get there. The navigator has helped me to provide them resources that they had in hand before they even moved into their new residence. So navigators are great. I encourage anyone, and I'll show a phone number at the end. If you need help with any resources in the community, feel free to call the navigators. Access to Care is going to screen individuals for medical necessity. So are individuals experiencing symptoms and impairments that would indicate that mental health treatment is even necessary? And permanent supportive housing is our actual physical housing units. So throughout Pomona, Claremont, and Laverne, we do partner with different property managers, and we have units in various locations through the 3 cities. So that was the first component. There were 5. PEI programs are our second component. So here we are looking at our community and mental health trainers. If anyone needs or would appreciate or know someone that would find useful free trainings from a mental health perspective, there's a myriad of trainings that the community and mental health trainers can provide you, your organizations, your businesses for free in the 3 cities. Stigma reduction is out there really just in engaging the community and educating them about how stigma surrounding mental health impacts individuals and communities. We have our TAY and older adult well-being services. So these are going to be our peer mentors and our wellness center. In some situations, a clinical approach isn't necessary, or group therapy isn't indicated, but a peer mentor might be a lived experience person, similar age, similar demographic, that you can pair with and partner with, and just have talk sessions, have that peer support. Early psychosis is there for the youth. This is a program that is there for 16 to 25-year-olds. And here we are looking at identifying individuals who might be at high risk for a psychotic episode due to family history or whatever it may be, or they have experienced a psychotic episode for the first time ever. We want to, again, intervene early there. School-based program acts as a bridge between all of the K through 12 schools in the 3 cities and Tri-City. Just, again, reminding of our services, reminding them that we're there. In some situations, people might need a therapist from Tri-City as opposed to the school-based counseling. And in other situations, not. NAMI is our National Alliance on Mental Illness. So they are really looking at partnering with family members of individuals who are experiencing symptoms and impairments of mental illness. Community well-being grants, this is actually happening now. So if anyone's interested, please drop your email in the chat and I'll be sure to connect you to our coordinator who runs this program. But if you qualify, you can earn up to $10,000 of a grant for your project that aims at supporting ages 0 to 25. So that's one of the main components of that. The Therapeutic Community Garden utilizes a therapeutic horticulture modality to address overall wellness. So they are planting seeds, they are harvesting, they are doing pest management, they're working with California natives and planting appropriately. They are going through a rejuvenation. So right now they are operating virtually with some in-person harvests. They're hoping the garden will reopen sometime later in the spring. And then our housing stability program is not the housing units, as I mentioned before, the rooms, the physical rooms themselves, but programming that's been put in place so that it's one to obtain your housing, right? But it's another to maintain housing. In some situations, individuals are gaining housing, which is incredible. But there are new rules, new deadlines, new expectations, right, from landlords, et cetera. So housing stability program is really there to make sure that the housing is maintained once it's obtained. And those are PEI programs. Innovations is really looking at new, different ways to address wellness in the community. So one of the main projects we're working on right now is a multi-county collaboration. There's 7 counties in total, and this is called PADS, or Psychiatric Advance Directives. So really what this is giving an individual an opportunity under full consent, sound state of mind. Do you want to make a psychiatric advance directive in the case that in the future something is going on to where you can't make decisions on your own? Maybe I want to identify a trusted person that you would like to be alerted, when something like this is going on. Maybe there's certain treatments you approve of and don't approve of. This is a work in progress. There's more you can learn here at padsca.org. But again, this is 7 different counties in California are trying to see what this psychiatric advance directive through best practices, how that could look for our communities. Capital facilities and technological needs. Every artist needs their tools, right? Every gardener needs their tools. We are the same, there at Tri-City Mental Health. We need the electronic health systems that are going to protect people's information. We have to abide by HIPAA. We want the security, right, to make sure everyone is safe in the community, our clients, our employees. We have the Garden Rejuvenation Project, as I mentioned. I was in the garden 6 years before I went into the administrative side, and I'm still learning a lot. I'm relatively new to this position, so bear with me. But the Garden Rejuvenation Project is something that the community has been asking for a long time, outdoor sink, outdoor classroom, the electrical units. We're going to have a propagation stations, raised beds, in-ground beds for the kids, and raised beds for others to just, walk up if they need to be standing up for their session. So capital facilities and technological needs is really, really vital for us to do our job the right way, effectively, and appropriately. And then workforce education and training. You've probably heard that there's, a huge shortage of teachers right now. And that is very true. And we're going through something very similar in mental health and community mental health in particular. We are seeing a huge turnaround. It is very difficult to maintain, our therapists and our mental health workers. And it's certainly not for everyone, but we want to identify those in high school, those who are in college. Well, if this is for you, if this sparks an interest, let us connect with you. Let us build that bridge and make sure that those who do feel that this is the path for them, that is fostered, right? And we create a good foundation. So we're developing the volunteer force. We're connecting with high schools. We're looking for future employees, and we are training staff. It's one thing to be fully staffed. It's another thing to have people who are passionate, productive, caring, and have that true empathy to do their job and do their job well. So workforce and education and training is really vital as well. I want to share with you the breakdown of how the funding works. So the community services and support, the first of the 5 components we discuss, that's 76% of MHSA funds. So it's the biggest chunk that you'll see there. The prevention and early intervention is 19% of the funds. Innovation is 5%, and then capital facilities and technological needs and workforce education and training, they get monies reallocated from the community services and supports. And the main reason is that's just the biggest chunk of money there. So that is where we're going to have some monies to move around. And I wanted to mention too, when I speak in these meetings, and I'm really coming from a place of, yes, I want to let the community know what we have. More important is we want to hear your voice. A lot of the programming that exists for us today exists because of community input. One department I could think of is our employment department. People had said, for me, mental health and wellness is getting a job, maintaining that job, generating an income, feeding my family. So really, we can't just think about, of course, the clinical services are vital and really important for so many people. There's other pieces like having a roof over your head, having job skills, getting trainings, having someone help you fill out your resume. That's all really important. So just as an example, the employment department developed out of stakeholder meetings and stakeholder suggestions, community member suggestions. It was successful after a 3-year trial, and it now has permanent funding under Tri-City Mental Health. So it not every request, of course, can be executed, right? There's a lot of factors involved, but a lot of times it just starts with a recommendation and a suggestion. So just here to remind you that you can come to commission meetings, you can join the governing board meetings. There's public comment. Right now, you're able to leave comment in the chat. I'm going to make sure to take those back to my director and just share, anything that might come in. And if you don't, if you're not able to leave public comment in that way, if you need to think about it or come back to it later, I encourage you to scan our QR code here. This is another way you could fill out our community planning process survey. And again, it gives you that opportunity. What do you want to see? What do you think is missing? What do you like? We are really just here as your community mental health support. Well, legally, we have to get your opinion, right? The tax dollars of the California state are going into creating these programs. But ethically, we need to do this, right? It doesn't make any sense to make decisions about a community without members of that community present. There's a South African disability rights movement quote that says, "Nothing about us without us." So if decisions are being made about people like me, then someone like me should be at that table where the decisions are being made, and not just at that table, but having their voice heard. So just a friendly reminder, if you're able to scan and leave your opinion, leave your comment, that would be greatly appreciated. This is our roadmap to really how we make change every year. So we have our fall stakeholder meetings. Then we have our work groups where the programs are discussed in more detail. Our winter stakeholder meetings are looking at the recommendations. We end up developing a plan. We post a draft of the annual update that the plan is in, that is posted for 30 days. Through this time, another opportunity for stakeholder engagement. You could leave comment on the Tri-City website regarding the plan and any feedback you may have. And then ideally, the commission has approved. It goes to the governing board, and the Tri-City governing board approves at their next meeting. So just a little background as well on kind of how this process takes place for us. I mentioned the phone number at the end. Literally any department I talked about can be reached through this main 909-623-6131 phone number. And again, you know, I know this might feel like a little bit of a different presentation for Sustainable Claremont, but I think I want to hook back to, you know, the 8 areas of wellness and how environment is one of those areas. And thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You may be familiar with it. For those of you who aren't, Maslow theorized that we have 5 levels of needs. And at the very bottom, we have our physiological needs, which are, you know, your basic needs. And then it moves up to the next level, which is the safety needs. Then you have your love and belonging. And then you have your esteem, the way you feel about yourself. And at the highest, most level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you have self-actualization, which is really just seeing something outside of yourself that's bigger, whatever that may be. Striving for higher level goals and understanding of the self, and really being able to give back and encompassing more values and morality, whatever they are. This self-actualization looks different for everybody. But I do bring this up because I think this is where it all ties into the environment, right? It's going to be hard for an individual, and coming from working in the garden space for 6 years, you know, I saw this directly. If someone was hungry or thirsty or really severely depressed, it was very hard to think outside the self and work on something bigger. So I just want to make that connection there and kind of show how I felt like this really tied in. And, you know, not speaking from the therapeutic horticulture perspective per se today, just wanted to share that with you. And I appreciate the time and the space to come and share everything we have going on at Tri-City. And again, remind you, if you'd like to leave any opinion, any comments, you can scan the QR code, and I'll also actually go ahead and put a link to the same survey in the chat right now. But that is all for me. So again, thank you very much, and I'll go ahead and throw that into the chat.
Great. Sarah, thank you so much. It's very informative and very important work. Just want to open up the discussion for any questions or comments from anybody in the audience. And if nobody else, oh, Dick, go ahead.
Yes, I finally unmuted myself. Sarah, I'm really, you know, I think we have talked before about various collaborations between Sustainable Claremont and Tri-City, and I've been thinking about it a lot ever since. And I'm just, you know, I'd like to get your candid reaction. For example, Sustainable Claremont has a number of programs that really feed from public involvement. Planting trees, for example, it's really almost a family affair. Or as we extend the composting program to the schools, there's a real opportunity to get to know, you know, families and certainly students, high school students, elementary school students, and so forth. To what extent would it make sense? And now you know, and I don't. Would it be sensible to plant a staff member from Tri-City in some of these programs just to sort, because, and I say this because I have noticed over the years that the people who really participate in planting a tree or composting or so forth, are really concerned about climate change.
Absolutely.
And can really, and you can see that they're a little upset, at some level. And I'm just wondering to what extent it would be sensible to have a staff member sort of circulate in these events and try to, get a sense of whether there is real need for the services of Tri-City, in this group or in the individuals, or maybe if you took a look at a family that's planting a tree, you could see right away that they could use some services. But that's my, naive sense.
No, I appreciate that. And I think, depending on the event, we are really trying to embed ourselves in the community because something we've learned from going through COVID together, right? And trying to still live in this very much post-COVID world. We can't keep asking people to come to us. So if there's a particular event coming up, if there's a resource fair, if there's an activity, I mean, right away, with what you're talking about and the perspective I came from before, the therapeutic community garden, right, immediately comes into my head. I would love to actually get your email so we can keep this dialogue going. And if there's a schedule coming up or various point persons, depending on what's coming up, we would love to put a table out there anywhere. We'll even table at Citrus College, even though it's outside of the Tri-City area. We know that there's a good amount of students at Citrus College that probably have some affiliation with Tri-City. And if they need help and it can't be us, then the navigators are there to refer. I see that maybe Earth Day. That's a really good suggestion. But yes, please, let me actually, if I'm able to, I'm going to go ahead and put the number in the chat again. Please feel free. I'm sorry, sir. What was your name?
I'm Richard Haskell. You can probably see on my image in tiny little print at the bottom. It's Richard Haskell. But Sarah, I think I have your email address, so
Perfect.
I'll contact you. And we've been interacting with a number of folks at Tri-City, trying to sort of feel our way into a collaboration. So I'll follow up. You can't get rid of me very
Yes. Please. No, I appreciate that, Richard. Sorry, I have a million screens open right now, but I have your name written down and I have documented your comment and we would love to collaborate. I mean, and I think I want to spread this out as well. Anybody in the room who feels that any component of what I was mentioning speaks to, if you see a benefit in the community, get a hold of me. I'll link you to the coordinator, program manager, or supervisor who is in charge of whatever department, really stood out to you. Or again, leave the public comment, right? If it's not so much a collaboration you're looking for. But suggestions, feedback for us. We've been around 63 years and change is inevitable and we need to keep rolling with change together. There's a lot going on these days. And I barely opened the chat. What does PEI stand for? So prevention and early intervention. That is us. That. And then thank you. Thank you, Valerie. I appreciate that. Like I said, these are starting to get more comfortable for me, but I have only been in this role since July. So I am learning a lot. I am humbled by everything that I'm learning. Yep, maybe Earth Day. I saw that. What role Tri-City plays in terms of supporting students of the Claremont colleges? Is there already a formal connection? So we were actually just there. I wouldn't call it a formal connection. Layla, I believe, Hawkins. We have really been trying to make more of an impact and a presence with the Claremont colleges. I think I graduated from the University of Laverne, so I feel like I have my connections there personally, and it's kind of rippling out. But if you could point us in the right direction, Layla, we've been there a couple times. I've been there with a therapeutic community garden, and I've also been there as the MHSA Projects Manager. And we spoke to a class there about, it was basically the exact same presentation, but the more connections we can make, the better. Like I said, it's not always, hey, do you need a therapist? Do you think you might use benefits from some mental health support with one-on-one psychodynamic, approach. That is not always the case. There's so much more that Tri-City is doing. The term mental health in our title, I think, can be a little misleading because we really are focusing on the whole person. Child wrangling while I participate. Yeah, mine's in the other room. I totally hear you.
Sarah, I have a question. It might turn into two questions. It has to do with housing, and you mentioned that before. As an organization, we've gotten involved in a couple of the affordable housing projects, essentially to support that as part of the sustainable aspect of any community. And particularly for some of the affordable housing projects that were going to be built for people that were formerly homeless, there's been a lot of resistance from some parts of the city, some people in the city, essentially because of the target population and feeling like they might not be managed properly, that they might be dangerous. And I'm just wondering, one, if you can speak to the challenges of people who have been homeless and then becoming housed, and some of those challenges that they have to face and how they manage it. But also, anything we can do to help destigmatize that and make the community more accepting of some of these programs or these housing opportunities. So.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a few things that pop into my mind. One is the vote in March. There's a lot of stuff on the ballot that Governor Gavin Newsom has that is going to impact how MHSA, the breakdown slide that I showed you of the 76%. And so that's going to really change potentially if certain things pass. And so that piece is just talking about the funding itself, really looking at housing insecurity and individuals who are experiencing homelessness and just the housing piece, right? Something that was developed several years ago, really based off, I think, of your question and wanting to see the success. Because like I mentioned, unfortunately, I've worked with some individuals where it was so difficult to maintain the housing. One, the rules and expectations just overnight that happen are so difficult to adhere to. It's just such a shift, like a rapid shift in a living situation. And what seems to us like, oh, it's such a great thing, you got the roof over your head. It is a huge stressor to land that as well. And what I want to say to that also is what they developed through the housing department was there is a liaison at each location that we currently have. And this individual is a Tri-City employee who acts as a connection between the resident and the landlords, because they are not owned by Tri-City, right? We're talking about working with like I mentioned, I'm not going to have all the information being still relatively new, but let's just say, for example, Jamboree, right? They have their whole other management. They have all their staff. They have their own set of rules. So the Tri-City housing liaisons are at the unit. They have office hours, depending on how many units in a building we have. Because in one case, it might be, we have 5 apartments here, but we have 25 here. The office hours increase the more individuals we have. So there are Tri-City individuals on site at each of our units as well. And I think that's been really helpful too, just to really bridge that gap, because we all have preconceived notions and biased thinking about people who are different than us. So I think continuing dialogues, just like we are now. I mean, I'm again, I said this word already, but I'm absolutely humbled by some of the stories I've heard. I've been a marriage and family therapist in community mental health for 10 years, and each case is very, very, very different. So I think there's no solid answer, to your questions, but I think those are a few things that we're doing and things that we can continue to do to hopefully move towards something that feels more inclusive and understanding and supportive.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, and I did throw my the main phone number. You could get to me, the navigators, questions for the housing manager at the 623-6131 number. And then I put my email as well. And I think I saw the chat slow down, but I am here in case there's anything else.
Anybody else? See any other questions? Well, oh, Dick, did you have something else? Yes.
Yeah, you know, it just occurred to me that I'm not sure I have a current sense of your use, that is the Tri-City use of sort of environmental projects like, you know, planting or caring for a garden or caring for I think at one point we had a small grove of citrus trees, which require a lot of care. And just getting people who are just really unnerved, stressed, and so forth, and being able to get into a situation where they're caring for something and they see it thriving, and you know, it's just so
Oh,
rewarding.
yes.
Are you still making use of that? Is that a current sort of program or avenue?
Yes, absolutely. The therapeutic community garden, while they're going through the rejuvenation, that's a big foundational piece of therapeutic horticulture. I love this modality. It's very near and dear to my heart. I'm on the board of directors for the American Horticultural Therapy Association, and even just being out there, practicing mindfulness, tapping into the five senses. They have found through studies that just digging in the soil releases Mycobacterium vaccae, and that elevates our serotonin and dopamine levels in our brain to the degree of antidepressants. I'm not prescribing garden soil to anybody. Do what you have to do, listen to your doctors, but these studies are absolutely fascinating. And beyond just the physically being out there, people start to learn that once there's a connection that, hey, nature is good for me, gardening is good for me, then people start to care about nature. And then the wheels start turning about sustainability and just the wellness of the planet and you know, this timeline that we have when it comes to Earth, you know, just all the spaces of, and this goes back to the garden too, but there's a lot of non-soil on this planet now, right? We've planted the same thing in the same place over and over and over again. The ground needs biodiversity. And there's so many lessons. I could go on for days about therapeutic horticulture, but yes, we have a program that ties in beautifully gardening, nature, the soil into our wellness. It may not even be just a coping skill, but increasing your awareness that there's really great stuff out here for us, and then we tend to give back. So yes, therapeutic community garden. If I get your email, Richard, I know you said you had mine, I will send you their schedule, and they are, let me see, I can actually pull that up right now just so I could share with everybody, because this is obviously right up this space's alley, and I totally get it. I still garden as much as I can to this day. It's a lot harder with a toddler, but I try. Let me pull up their schedule. Am I able to share screen one more time so I could show everyone the group calendar?
I think you're still the host, aren't you?
Oh, let me try then.
These
Okay.
videos
It
share.
should come up easily then. Yep, there it is. So as I mentioned, right now it's virtual. Initially, that was because of COVID, but now it's because they broke ground and they're starting construction. So this garden is located at 2008 North Gary site. While this whole schedule is virtual, there are still in-person giveaways. So they're still giving away seed kits and herbs and recipes and all these different you know, arts and crafts that are nature-based. Even just, you know, holding on to a piece of wood or a pencil made of wood as opposed to this pen. Our skin's a semi-permeable membrane, so when we hold something like this, you're more likely to start perspiring, and it feels unnatural. But if you hold on, to a pencil that has that woody outer, it doesn't happen the same way. So there's all these very interesting things going on in the therapeutic community garden. They still need to build the outdoor classroom. There's no opening date. We hoping to have a big ribbon cutting ceremony. I'll make sure to email Stuart when we have a green light on that opening, and you're all invited. So that is going to be a very exciting time.
Right.
I
That's
think
very exciting.
yes. It was sad that I moved over to admin just coincidentally right before they broke ground. Oh, thank you. I got the email. Let me write that down. We've discussed having a reading group centered around ecological grief or climate grief. Is that something that would be interesting, Tri-City being a part of that sounds really interesting. Specifically for this, Elise, I would hook back to the therapeutic community garden again. And we could discuss. Let me do some brainstorming too, because that is a very real new anxiety of the youth. My generation didn't grow up with this fear about climate change and the sustainability of our planet and our soil, and that is very real. So I again think the therapeutic community garden would be perfect for that. But if you want to again drop your email in the chat, or if you want to email me, whatever you prefer, Elise, I'm all for it, and we can talk about that as well. And I'm just writing down the emails that I do see. Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Elise. I will look out for your email. And I think I got all the chats done.
Sarah, we have had discussions about doing a dialogue that's focused on climate anxiety and some of the different triggers of that and what people are experiencing. So that may be an opportunity to bring this topic up again, but I think the therapeutic garden sounds like a very good part of the puzzle for getting people less anxious about climate change.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's anyone's garden. I was in a meeting earlier today, with my board that I volunteer for. And one of the individuals said, the gardens are great. Like the community gardens are great, right? But you can make your backyard a sustainable garden. You can have that green space. And, that goes without bringing in the discussion of socioeconomic status and the ability of people to do that. But it is just nice to know that, change starts here with us individually, with us united as a group. Yeah, let me know, Hugh or Stuart, if anybody wants to reach out and maybe figure out if that's a good space too to, support you guys. We're here.
Right. Any other questions or comments from anybody?
Yeah, I see your comment, Layla. Yeah, as a professor of climate science, students come to me with heavy emotions. Yeah. Very, like I said, I don't remember having that fear growing up. It's very real and very new.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate this discussion, this talk. It was so informative. I really did not know all the things that Tri-City did, so it was really great to just learn about that. But very much enjoyed the time, and thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Right. Have a nice night.
Thank you.